What's good, kings and queens? Hope everyone's month is starting alright. After numerous requests to do a video on fighters' resumes once they entered world title contention, I thought about it, mostly trying to craft up the title. So here we go, of the very first part of this new series, the resume audit. Let's go through the resume of Vasyl Lomachenko. Before we start, how did Vasyl get into the position from the start? Well, he had incredible credentials due to his amateur background, raking in 396 wins and 1 loss with 2 Olympic gold medals to his name, which earns him such privileges to move up at whatever pace him and his team believes. There has not been an amateur as great, as dominant as Vasyl since Donald Curry, who had the record of 396-4, but Curry himself believes it's 404-4. Either way, he is an underappreciated GOAT who was robbed of competing in the Olympics due to the US's protests of Moscow, becoming the record holder or tire over Sainsek Mungsurin of becoming the fastest fighter to become world champion was not really part of the picture originally. Vasyl and his team fought in a WSB tournament, raking in 6 fights. So really, Vasyl should have been 6-0, but due to a technicality in regards to the gloves, these 6 fights were not official, which Vasyl's team fought hard to have them registered as pro fights. This made some headlines in 2013 and 2014, but if you weren't paying attention around that time, it's just a small but very large piece of context that was lost with time. So to compensate with these 6 fights not being recognized, Vasyl's team fought tooth and nail to get him a title shot as soon as possible. Due to his credentials as a 2-time gold medalist and the greatest amateur in a long while, he was given a chance to fight for the WBO international title against Jose Luis Ramirez. Ramirez had recently beaten Ray Batista for the title. This is a major regional title to set one up to become a contender. Vasyl completely outclassed Ramirez to earn a shot to fight Orlando Salido for the WBO Featherweight title. Given the fact that Jose rightfully earned the position to be in the mix for a world title, I will give it a C grade. So let's discuss the weight class at the time. After 2012 going into 2013, this was a transitional period in the weight class. The great champion Chris John was becoming old quick, and he would be dethroned by Simpiwe Vietka after 17 title defenses, retiring him in the process at the end of 2013. Abner Mares would get dethroned by veteran former champion Johnny Gonzalez. You had Nicholas Walters moving up quite quickly. Nonito Donaire in the process of moving up after his defeat against Guillermo Rigondeaux. Gary Russell Jr. making moves as well.
What a shot!
The featherweight class was very much alive coming into 2014. Due to the technicality, Vasyl by default was in a position to overtake Muay Thai GOAT turned boxer Sainsek Mungsurin's record of becoming the fastest to become world champion. Orlando Salido would miss weight, so the title is now vacant, and Vasyl is now the only person who could win it. Salido came in at 147 pounds in fight day. Having the size and strength advantage, Salido pulled every veteran tactic that Loma was not used to, stacked up a sizable lead before tiring out because of the obvious. The controversy was the insane amount of low blows by Salido, the ref refusing to acknowledge, and you could say a little bit of that Texas judging. This resulted in Vasyl losing. Due to the controversy, this set up an unprecedented cross-promotion fight against Gary Russell Jr. This was during the peak of the TV network Cold War, and this fight was sort of signifying it's finally over. Due to Vasyl's team mostly urging the promotion to make this fight happen, even if Vasyl had to cross over to Showtime and fight Gary Russell. In 2014, Salido was still Salido, and we will see him once again pulling off the same level of performance against contender Turtsek Jangdang in an absolute barn burner for the interim title, to spawn his rivalry against Roman Martinez before truly falling off. I'll give this a B+ grade. From this class of US Olympians, Gary Russell was easily one of the most talented fighters, some of the fastest hands in the sport, and everyone was painstakingly waiting for his shot to fight for the world title.
En algunos choques, bien la velocidad de Gary Russell. Sin embargo, y Estrada también parece decirle yo puedo pegar rápido, pero es espectacular este Gary Russell.
as he raked up 24 fights. This matchup was a match made in heaven because both guys were supposed to cross paths in the 2008 Olympics, but due to Gary getting sick, he was forced to retire from the games. Due to Vasyl's performance against Salido, more people sided with Gary Russell despite Gary Russell being the slight betting underdog. To the fight fans' shock, Vasyl would completely outclass Gary to win by a questionable majority decision to tie the record. This gets an A+ grade because of the obvious. First defense for Vasyl, the 51-1 Chan Lathorn was ranked number 2 by the WBO. He was the WBO Asian champion due to his rank within the organization, and since his fight was in Macau, China, which it's a card mostly highlighting Asian fighters, it was most suiting for the Pacific region audiences. Vasyl would dominate the fight, dropping him in the 4th round, but was not able to get a stoppage, resulting in a wide unanimous decision. I'll give this a B- because he was ranked. Before I touch on this, I must say Mayweather-Pacquiao was the worst undercard ever assembled in prize fight history of the 2010s. It was bad on paper and it was bad when it happened. I think everyone was expecting a Mayweather-Canelo type of undercard where we would get a great co-main. At the time, everyone was trying to see a fight between Leo Santa Cruz and Guillermo Rigondeaux to unify the division, but instead, Leo fought some guy outside of the top 50 ranks on a week or two notice and fought him to a decision. Rodriguez beat Orlando Cruz for the WBO and NBO title, important regional belt signifying you're the best WBO ranked fighter in North America. He was ranked number 1 by the organization. He is the best opponent for Vasyl, but the fight everyone wants to see is him unifying against WBA champion Nicholas Walters, who is just obliterating guys at the time. Lomachenko would make easy work of Rodriguez, getting the KO in the 9th round. I'd give this a B- grade. He was ranked by the organization, but he did not have top 10 world rankings, but he was a contender, and Vasyl is doing his job of fighting the best fighter available within his organization and TV network, because we cannot forget about the promotional divide. This will be his last fight at featherweight and the worst on his resume. Who knows what the plans were, because Oscar Valdez was ranked number 1 by the WBO, and did they want him fighting Vasyl so early? And this is around the time Walters had moved up to super featherweight and he was a household name. That was still the matchup to be made. I can only assume, and they just had to fill someone in, and it was not of quality. Let's say it wasn't Top Rank's plan of spoiling their new prospect, Oscar Valdez. That still leaves number 3 ranked Matias, which Valdez goes on to fight for Vasyl's vacant title. I give this a D- grade. Just coming off his rivalry against Orlando Salido, the judging in the rematch was rather suspect. I felt like Martinez's last hurrah was in their first fight. He would be brutally dethroned by Vasyl, and this will set up Vasyl's fight with Nicholas Walters. I give this a C+ rating. Martinez had the title, had top 5 rankings, but I personally thought he was over the hill, and it was in due time. He's a massive target to be dethroned. Vasyl's first defense would be against Nicholas Walters. Walters coming off a draw against Jason Sosa. He just didn't seem like the Walters that was slaying guys at featherweight. Vasyl would run circles around Walters, forcing a guy with all this power to be fighting on his back foot and be on the defensive, to where Walters retired from his corner in the 7th round. Not only retired from the fight, but from boxing altogether. He'll make a comeback this year as I'm speaking. This would be Vasyl's best opponent so far. I give an A-. This fight should have happened a little bit earlier, I believe, when Walters could still make weight at featherweight. After the draw against Walters, Sosa would prove how underrated he was in the weight class by upsetting the undefeated Javier Fortuna in the 11th round for the WBA regular title. After a defense against contender Stephen Smith, Sosa, now ranked number 9 by Ring Magazine, was matched up to fight Lomachenko. My honest opinion, because the Salido fight was still fresh, Sosa was going to make this pretty close early on. That did not happen, and Sosa got completely dominated before it was stopped in the 9th round. I give this a B+ grade. Jason Sosa in his own right was world class, but he had the WBA regular title. The real WBA champion at that time was Takashi Uchiyama. That's why Sosa was forced to relinquish the WBA title before even fighting Vasyl, because the WBO did not recognize the WBA regular title as a real title. Certainly a missed opportunity to unify the division, and in retrospect of what happened with the WBA belt in that weight class, it would have certainly saved everyone the headache. So Orlando Salido found himself number 1 in the WBO rankings, and there was a rematch in talks. The rematch did not happen. This fight is a result of it. Vasyl obliterates this guy. Miguel came off a decision loss against Oscar Valdez in a grinder of a fight. Vasyl just made it look too easy. I give this a C+. He's not in the top 10 ranks, not in the WBO top ranks. I can't even find him in the top 15 for the month before he was fighting in both featherweight and super featherweight. His only status is going 12 rounds with Nicholas Walters at featherweight and 12 hard rounds with Oscar Valdez, and that was it.
Has Bob Arum's been talking about you and Rigondeaux in the not too distant future? What are your thoughts about that fight?
I think it'll be fine. I'll need a couple more fights before we go about it.
Is that out of respect for Rigondeaux's professional skill at this point?
Уважаешь Ригон?
Кого?
Ты уважаешь?
Ригон, конечно.
Yeah, of course.
This fight was a result of a lot of political BS from boxing belt organizations, networks, and promotions. Due to poor marketing, management, and matchmaking, Rigondeaux was put into a bad position where he was blacklisted by the Western boxing establishment. The writing was on the wall, and after possibly his most exciting fight against Amagasa, he should have very well went back to Japan to face contender Shingo Wake and Yoshinori Oguni. But instead, his career remained in limbo out in the West where no one wanted to fight him. WBA regular champ Scott Quigg and his handlers wanted no part of this guy, to where you can say a deal was made for Rigo to just take a walk. So that fight between Quigg and Frampton can be a vacation, because like I said earlier, the regular title is not a real title. So fast forward, no option to fight anybody. The Lomachenko fight was offered, since I'm sure the Salido fight was off the table. This was billed as an even matchup just because Rigo was feared by so many because of his style, his underrated power. He broke the jaw of Amagasa, a man that outsized weighed him by so much. Instead of being on the defensive for the rest of the fight, he put on his best offensive performance, and that right there should scare anyone from super bantamweight all the way to featherweight, because Amagasa he's really pretty much almost a lightweight. Then to follow up and break the jaw of James Dickens. What would happen in the fight would be quite shocking, and Rigo would retire from the fight and take a 2-year hiatus. I would give this a B- grade due to everything leading up to this fight. Rigo still had rank, not only in the world rankings but pound for pound as well. After a matchup like Loma versus Rigo, where it was pretty split of positive and negative views, Lomachenko had to have something big and undisputably a wow factor of a matchup. The Linares fight was that fight. Bad case for Linares because Linares made an amazing career comeback, teaming up with Salas, winning the WBC title, but things would happen where he was named the champion in recess, and his unification against Krolla was just for the WBA and ring title. The WBC just doing a diamond belt for that fight. Mikey Garcia went on to become the WBC champion. After Linares beat Krolla in their rematch, putting on the best performance of his career, everyone was expecting Mikey and Jorge to unify. I just don't think it was enough money for Mikey. Linares taking promotions and Golden Boy tailored a contract to Mikey's liking. Mikey was stated that he wanted no exclusivity fight deal, just a one-fight deal, and he goes back to wherever. They had pretty much everything. Who knows how much the purse was, because Mikey chose money over Unifying for legacy, moved up and fought Broner for a career high purse in a non-titled bout. Linares went on to fight Luke Campbell, and who really knows if there was a second attempt, but the Lomachenko fight was a direct result of the Mikey fight not happening. This was a matchup where both guys needed each other. Linares was at his absolute peak, and he wanted a big fight to put himself in another level in the sport where he was supposed to have been, if not for his misfortunes. Vasyl needed a guy above his level who was undisputably the best fighter in the weight class. When you have a matchup like that where both guys need each other, you're going to see something special. Now, there is one thing I like to note that, my opinion, this is one of the biggest boneheaded things and betrayals. Linares had been with Salas for years now. He is technically his best fighter at the moment, and this is the biggest fight of Jorge's career. Why the hell did he take the job to train David Haye for the Tony Bellew rematch, which is just days apart from each other? Rudy Hernandez took over the head coaching job for this fight. Again, this is all just my opinion here. Things may have been a bit different if Linares had his trainer 100% through camp and at the fight. But anyways, it was highly competitive, and when Vasyl looked like he was getting the momentum, Linares set him up with the perfect shot, dropping Vasyl for the first time in his career. Just back and forth from the two. And despite it being even in the 10th round, Vasyl would catch Linares with a sneaky picture-perfect body shot. He was unable to get up in time. Vasyl would make history to become the fastest 3-division world champion in 12 fights. I rate this an S-grade matchup. Vasyl moves up in his first fight, fights a legitimate champion in the weight class who is at their absolute peak of their career. Lomachenko would face former champion and current number 4 ranked Anthony Crolla, who was in a 4-fight win streak after his rivalry against Linares. Lomachenko would completely dominate the fight and stop Crolla in the 4th round. I rank this a B+ grade. Crolla is ranked in the top 5. He was the best option given the political climate because the WBC and IBF champion Mikey Garcia was certainly not going to face Lomachenko due to a laundry list of reasons for the undisputed title, the network and promotion divide being at the top of the reasons. So we just saw Mikey once again take the money and move up to fight Errol Spence Jr. for career high purse instead of becoming undisputed. Part of Vasyl's journey to becoming undisputed, this fight was for Mikey Garcia's WBC title that went vacant. Luke Campbell was ranked number 1 by the WBC and number 4 by Ring Magazine. Campbell would touch up Vasyl a couple of times, but overall it was a dominant performance by Vasyl to earn the wide unanimous decision. I give this an A-. Campbell was ranked in the top 5, number 1 by the WBC and number 9 by the WBA. Teofimo really wanted this fight with Lomachenko, but he did what no other fighter was willing to do. If you want to fight with a guy of Vasyl's stature, or any fighter of his stature, you need to get in his way of what he wants to force a fight with him. Because if you're not the mandatory and it's not your time up, you're just going to be waiting. Vasyl is trying to become undisputed champion. The most sure bet to get in his way and force a fight is if he gets the IBF title before he does. Lopez wins every single regional credential, NABF, IBF USBA, and the NABA. You can say whatever about this man, but you cannot hate the hustle here. He won every regional credential to undisputedly earn himself a title elimination bout against Nakatani, then fight for the IBF title against Kami. After beating Kami, he is now directly in the path of Lomachenko. He wants Loma, and Loma wants his belt to meet his ultimate goal, and this made a great matchup. A classic performance by the two, which Vasyl came up just short, despite fighting injured. This is an S-tier grade. Teofimo was in his prime, peak confidence. You really have to want it to take all those side quests to get a title shot to make this matchup happen. He didn't do what other fighters were doing on social media, playing the victim, saying they're being ducked. He went out and he did it, because Teofimo did not have to fight those dudes to move up so fast as he did with the IBF. If not, it would have been Kami or Nakatani against Lomachenko for the undisputed title. Dude got red pilled on that one boxing business aspect and went on one crazy run. In Vasyl's comeback fight, he would face the number 10 ranked Masayoshi Nakatani. Nakatani had the reputation already of giving Lopez some trouble besides losing pretty wide on the cards. The reason why the betting odds was so lopsided to begin with in their fight. Nakatani came off a big win defeating Felix Verdejo for the WBO Intercontinental title. It was a mixed bag early, but Vasyl would run through Nakatani, stopping him in the 9th round. I rate this a B+. Nakatani had top 10 rank and showed that he is one of the best in the weight class. This was for the vacant WBO Intercontinental title. Kami was ranked number 3 in the weight class. If Vasyl ever wanted to get back into the position to get his titles, and then some back, he would need to get past Kami. Vasyl would brutally beat Richard for 12 rounds, somehow avoiding a stoppage to win by a wide unanimous decision. I rate this an A+. Kami is ranked in the top 3, and he is a must-fight opponent to get back in title contention. I think we all know what was happening in the career around this time with Vasyl. His comeback fight from his military duties was against undefeated prospect Ortiz. Ortiz became the NABF champ, beating Nahir Albright, then beating former champion Jamel Herring for the IBF USBA title. Vasyl would fight him to a unanimous decision. Good performance due to the context of the situation. I give this a B+ due to the obvious. Haney beat the guy that beat the guy not once but twice in his backyard to become undisputed, making him the guy to fight in the weight class. This fight was highly competitive throughout, Vasyl taking over the final quarter of the fight to just lose by a very close unanimous decision. Me personally, I think if the fight was ruled a split decision or a draw, both parties and even fan bases wouldn't have batted an eye. It was a real close fight. What really bit Vasyl in the butt here, gotta be honest here, the mid rounds 4 through 7, rounds 6 and 7 being swing rounds, where depending what type of judge you are, what you consider a winning round, it could go to either guy. Round 11, Vasyl should have followed through and did his best to force a knockdown. 12th round did not help either, as you can give it to both guys that round. Vasyl landing what he can, scoring to the head, and Haney, with now a second win, landing to the body at a high percentage and whatever he could score to the head. I think many were wowed by all the shots landed to the head of Haney, but we can't ignore Haney was matching Vasyl with the body shots. If this was the amateurs, absolutely, Vasyl would have won because body shots, you're rarely ever given points for landing. But this is professional boxing, where you are pointed on several categories: body, head, punch count / volume, and the effectiveness of the punch volume. So in conclusion, this matchup is an S tier rating. Vasyl's resume overall, I give an A+ rating. He has a hell of a resume. I think some are put off by the low amount of fights he has, but he was fighting opponents within the top 20, then the top 10 ranks very early in his career. In this context, 17-3 is very impressive. So for example, let's take a legend like Mike Tyson, where we are only counting his fights against ranked competition within the top 20 in the world by either record books or belt organizations, which his first ranked guy was Mitch Green, who was ranked number 7 by the WBC in his 21st pro bout. Tyson, to end his career, 28-6 with 1 no contest. Out of context, it doesn't look so nice, and this is what quite a bit of fighters with the low fight count but stacked resume have to deal with when it comes to the Hall of Fame, especially if they don't fight in America. Perfect example, the Japanese great Yoko Gushkin became champ in his 9th pro bout, made 13 title defenses before being dethroned. He retired after that loss, despite being widely acknowledged by Japanese press as one of the greatest Japanese fighters to ever do it. He didn't get inducted in the Hall of Fame till 30+ years after the fact. Same thing with Masao Oba, who you can describe as Japan's Salvador Sanchez. Both were seen as the greatest of their nation for a long while due to what they were able to achieve by the age of 23. Both passed away in a car crash 23 days after their final title defense. Both passed away at the age of 23. Pretty crazy coincidence here. Masao was recognized and inducted in 2015, 40+ years later. When it's all said and done, Vasyl should very well be in the Hall of Fame for what he was able to achieve, and on top of that, this is a resume audit of Vasyl Lomachenko. For more audits, be sure to like, share, and if you're new, subscribe to Patreon for Patreon-backed projects and early access. This project being on the tail of Floyd Mayweather versus Ricky Hatton. I'm Alpha Sancho, and I'm out.